Hello, this is Daniel Vail with Sports and Wrestling Talk. By the way, my regular podcast is called Behind the Story, and to wrestling fans out there that watched in the Attitude Era, I'm going to interview Just Incredible. I just have to decide what day it is, but I wanted to do it tomorrow. I don't know if I know enough about him to do it tomorrow. So when I do a little bit more research, I'll find out. Okay, so watching WWE Friday Night SmackDown from last Friday, and I have to say, a lot of people still don't see how good Roman Reigns is. Somebody actually said that them keeping Roman Reigns is as useless as them keeping Nia Jax. And even though I've personally I personally don't know if it's as bad, if her hurting people is as bad as they say it is, because it felt like a lot of that could have been just the nature of getting in the ring. The fact of the matter is, Roman Reigns never hurt anybody. So, you cannot compare them in that respect. When you make as many people better as he does, that's why they keep you. He is not a hazard to anybody. So why questioning keeping him when he is such a big draw and he makes so many people better? Like, whatever Aleister Black's real name is, he said himself, I think his name is Tom. Tom said that he was in NXT jobbing and doing not just jobbing in dark matches, but he would actually job in, like, say, house show appearances and, like, say, for the company for the better part of 2 years. So he had a lot of time between when he started and before he became Aleister Black, and he said himself that it's because of talking to Roman Reigns he became Aleister Black. I don't necessarily know if they came up with the name, but his experience growing up and everything in between is why he became the character Aleister Black. And he also, whether it's Seth Rollins or Finn Balor or Kevin Owens, all three men have said how he makes them better for being in the ring with them. So that in itself is another example of how good Roman Reigns is. Now, I recently realized, thinking back to his first promo by himself, a lot of people take for granted how he is week in and week out up until this recent gimmick of his. Up until this recent gimmick, people would take for granted how he is week in and week out, that they forgot to look at all the old Shield videos of him. Because when you would look at the old Shield videos, they never let him talk until it was time to talk against a group of people. And when he cut his first promo, it was unbelievable how good he spoke. So you can see that given the circumstances and given, it all depends on if he has say-so in his promos or not. Because when you give people enough creative freedom, because you see this in AEW all the time. You give people enough creative freedom, it's always a better show. Now, some people can take a script and run with it because they've been in the indies long enough. But to really help them develop and give them more things to work with, more substance, and things like that to their character, the best way of giving them that is giving them creative freedom. And that is what's been helping Roman Reigns, is him having the freedom to look at the scripts and everything else, and especially when he's been working with Kevin Owens, because it's not just Reigns and Heyman. It was Reigns, Heyman, and Owens that would look at the scripts and everything, and that's what has helped. So, going to SmackDown from last week, them holding off on Edge showing up was great. I think it adds to the story. And then this past Monday night, he ended his time on Raw by saying that he will not make his decision. He will not let his decision be known until the end of Elimination Chamber, because that way, he's been going to NXT as well as Raw and SmackDown, just have an idea of what's in store for him. And even though I would like the idea of spear versus spear, it might be more, I don't want to say popular, because that's not always the case, but it might be more interesting in a lot of ways to see him go against somebody like a Finn Balor. Not because of the character, but because they're both smaller men. So it might be interesting to see how the training ground, so to speak, and it's not, I'm not saying that in a condescending manner, but that's where the newer people start off. So in the old days, that's what they used to call it, as either training ground or stomping grounds. So, because that could be considered a stomping ground in WWE for a lot of people. Last year they had a women's title match in NXT, which was actually the most important for the women. It was the most important match because it was Charlotte Flair winning the Royal Rumble match, choosing an NXT champion. But what we did not realize was, and she didn't realize it either, was they had grown so much that she felt out of place. And because she felt out of place, that's why it was a great match, but when you feel out of place, maybe you shouldn't be there. So that's part of why she lost it when she did. Not only did she need to be away from the company for a while, but she needed to be in a place where she did not feel out of place. So that's why it was a good idea to do that. So, Baron Corbin versus Dominic Mysterio had an interesting twist to it, where Rey Mysterio held on. He got underneath the ring so they could hold on to Baron Corbin's leg, and Baron Corbin is about 6'5" tall, maybe. And so when he was trying to get back in the ring, because he's so tall, all it took was for Dominic to hit him with the 619, and that's exactly what happened. And he got back in the ring, and the next thing you know, he's losing to Dominic Mysterio. Because this is a storyline more for Rey Mysterio, that's why it's been working. when they realize they don't need Rey Mysterio anymore in the story, they need to send Dominic to NXT where he can really grow and mature in his ring work. Because I think that would be fair for everybody involved. Now this match right here, Cesaro against Daniel Bryan, they've really been putting on classic matches, and it's okay. That's interesting. When I say it's classic, I mean it's literally it's like watching the old wrestling where it has a lot of grappling and everything. And it's interesting right here is ever since Tyson Kidd had to retire from a neck injury, Cesaro has been using the sharpshooter ever since, and finally won with the sharpshooter by making Daniel Bryan submit to it. It's interesting because he always does about 8 or 10 swings before he releases it. And this time it led to a victory, and you don't often see that. So the reason it's great to see this is because usually when you do it as many times as they're doing it, now people can make the argument that it's crazy because it's the crazy mentality, the mentality of a crazy person who's doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome. But even though the outcome is winning and losing, the way you win and lose is what makes the difference. So that's why I'd say this isn't crazy. It really helps him continue to build up to where they're going now. Actually, when I think about it, because he's been doing it for so long, one thing they could use is they could use him for the NXT UK brand as an agent or something. I think they should be spending more time trying to use him in the main event because he made the mid card better than ever. He made it better than ever, and with his first level of success was the U.S. title. And that was when he first revealed that he could speak 5 languages. So, even though a lot of people think he already should have been heavyweight champion, I think now is the perfect time to put him in that I guess you could call it, move him into that spot of being a main event star, because no matter how good you are, sometimes that is a role that you have to grow into. And that's why a lot of times you'll see a person make a title big. And I was thinking about this earlier tonight. When SmackDown started, I was watching a DVD with my uncle, and it was the greatest stars of the 21st century. And when you can see how many times Chris Jericho won the mid-card title, the Intercontinental title, and only won the U.S. title once, and that was a couple of years ago. Or was it 5 years ago? I'm not really sure what the year was. So, because of that, fact, I have to say this. When it's great to be in the main event, and it's even better to not be satisfied where you are because some people might some people might be wondering why you never did more than one match for the heavyweight title because of how big of a draw you are and how good you are in the ring. So even though that's good, it all depends on how you treat people. And sometimes being in the mid card is better for you because you can remember that how to treat people the right way because the lower the position is, you usually have more of a ability or a chance to stay humble. So that's why that's important. What I'm wondering is, looking at SmackDown from last week, why did they put Ruby Riott against Bayley when Bayley has been on her own for the past few months, and Ruby Riott is a tag team wrestler with Liv Morgan. Plus, it makes me wonder why they went against each other when I just think she had her finisher on her. But their finisher is so generic, it is not really generic, it's more like, that's your finisher? Now, I understand, Trouble in Paradise, but the way he hit it and how long he took to build up to it is why it was a great finisher. To do it that quickly is never going to work. So I didn't understand her using it as a finisher. Wrist lock, and then you do almost like an enziguri. The finisher, it just never made any sense to me. What I'm wondering is whenever they turn Bayley heel, why didn't they let her keep her original finisher? The belly to belly or the Bayley to belly. You'd think using her name in the finisher would actually help her be a heel even more. I have to be honest though, in a lot of ways, her being a heel helps her story even more because she's more aggressive than usual and she's has more of an attitude, so it helps her more. Like it helps Roman Reigns. It's interesting. It's interesting how they never show him do anything with any of the females, not even have any interaction with them, but one of the most popular women, and when he became a heel, it helped her just like it's helping him. It's amazing. The same way and in the same way and in the same reason, it's helping both of them. Let's see. Ruby Riott blocked the Bayley to belly and most one with a roll up. That was interesting. She's thrown into the bottom rope, and a lot of people may not understand is there's a lot of realistic parts to that type of maneuver. Because if that was real life, getting thrown into the ropes because it's cables connected to each other, that could make it hard for you to breathe. So that's what makes it such a good tactic. I think she started something new. Not again. Nothing, Mom. Something on TV. thought Bailey won. Okay, went for a finisher. Billie Kay, she was told by Riot Squad not to help, but she tried to help anyway, and she still lost. I think the way the story with Bianca Belair was, I think she might have said she was going to make her decision tonight. So she's on her way to the ringside. And that's what makes it so interesting. Okay. So, everybody has their own opinions. I thought they made the right decision making Bianca Belair the winner of the Royal Rumble match. Because you had women like that have proven themselves already, like Charlotte Flair, like Nia Jax, and has somebody new like Bianca Belair is great because she hasn't really even gotten half of what her ability makes really shows that she deserves. So it's even better because I don't think she even had a shot at the title, and now she has 3 different options. Makes it even more incredible to see. I was gonna fast forward to see if she had anybody interrupt her again. It kind of actually reminds me how NXT when it first came out, it was after ECW was closed, and it was NXT originally was a fan interactive show. So before that happened, a few years before that happened, the same thing happened with when The Undertaker won the Royal Rumble match. I think only one time did he win it. When he did that, he had 3 options, and that was when ECW was still around. So it's interesting how NXT has become what ECW used to be. It's considered the 3rd brand, so now NXT is, you can even choose NXT and fans would not be upset about it. So what I mentioned about is how they're doing with Bianca Belair, and it looks like, because there's no official promotion for WrestleMania yet, so I don't think she made her decision yet. I think they're gonna do like Edge, even though I don't think the women have an Elimination Chamber match. I think they are gonna wait until after either Elimination Chamber or Fastlane before Bianca Belair makes her decision. So that's even more interesting. See what they did with Otis. I think Otis in real life, I think he was in the Pan American Games just like Chad Gable was in the Olympics. I think they might have known each other from that. I'm not sure, but it's interesting how they're, because of him being in the Pan Am Games, they were able to use that to help this new gimmick, I guess you could call it. You're going against Dolph Ziggler. This is interesting. It's interesting because he's one half of the tag team champions, and I think, yeah, either it's a one-on-one match or it's a tag team match. So if it's a tag team match, yeah, it's a tag team match. So it's interesting that they could have won this match, and it could throw them into a tag team title match. That's interesting. It's also interesting that Otis, this time last year, he was already in an angle against Dolph Ziggler, so it makes it even more interesting. My question is, I don't think, by the way, they have Street Profits at a split screen talking about this match, and that's even more interesting. Because we are forgetting about how the Street Profits should have a rematch, and one of them, even though it's in character, they claimed that he hasn't been cleared, so that's why he hasn't had a rematch. But the problem is, since that time, they haven't even mentioned him even having an injury, so we don't know if he's been cleared or not. And the problem is that actually takes away from the story. Since you don't know if it's a real injury or not, makes it even harder. And in the old days, that's why I say it takes away, because in the old days, if you had a legitimate injury, it didn't matter. Didn't matter if you were hurt or not, you had to work, because that's the way things were. And I guess that's why they do things so differently, because you have the luxury today of being able to see a doctor and everything in ways that you didn't have in the old days. So that's why they're more careful of what they show in that respect. So my thinking is even though Rude and Ziggler are a great team, surprisingly, because they're both two of the most egotistical, self-absorbed people on not just SmackDown, but in the entire company. So that's why it's so surprising that they're such a good team, because their egos are about the same size of one another. But anyway, what I'm wondering is, in the long-term plan, will either man ever be in even a storyline to become get heavyweight title matches? Really what I want to say. And the problem, though, with Ziggler is that even though he was heavyweight champion, second time he was only a champion for about 2 seconds or minutes, and then he found out he had to give it up. So because of that, I think that's why he never got back in the title picture, was Because when you're given 2 title reigns, the second reign is actually, it just made him look bad. I mean, of all the things that Vicky Guerrero did with Edge always looked, his character looked stronger than that. So why would they want to go back to giving you a push in the main event when both times he really didn't do anything with it? I mean, I think he was handed the title, then he had to give it back. Then he had no control over this. But even when he had the heavyweight title, this is what he had no control over. He got a concussion. He had no control over that. But even I would have taken the title off of him if I was in management. When I saw how the fans didn't seem to have any more interest in him as champion than they did with him chasing the title, I would have taken the title off of him right away. Because when you spend that much time building up a star to get the title, when they finally get it and it feels as meaningless as the first time they win it, you messed up somewhere. So that's why he stayed in the mid so much, was because they didn't see any growth in the middle of the mid-card run. Now they won the title they won this match after Gable was hit with the Impaler DDT by Robert Roode. So this was a good match to have them grow as a team, and it's a good way to keep you interested in them as a team while you wait for the former champions, or one half of the champions, to be what we would call cleared to compete. Somebody said that the way that Hulk Hogan spoke about his match with Andre the Giant when Earl Hebner switched places with his brother and counted to 3, but he said that his promo in the middle of that was just terrible, so I've got to hear this. Now what was funny about this was it was an obvious cheat on the referee's part, because Ray Charles could see that his left shoulder was up. They show Ted DiBiase laughing about it as they put the title around his waist for him. Ooh.
33 years ago today, 33 million people watched Hulk Hogan take on that no-good, stinky, wart-infested giant, Andre. And that makes me think about my brother Edge right now. He's got the decision of a lifetime. He's got an opportunity to either take on Drew McIntyre or to take on Roman Reigns. You're both in a heap of trouble because Edge was my tag team partner. Edge has won the love and the loyalty of millions and millions of Hulkamaniacs. They are watching his back. So what you gonna do when Edge picks one of you and Hulkamania runs wild on you?
I don't see what's wrong with this promo. The point of this was to help build Edge up. I think he did his job the right way. And they're only going to give him a minute or two, then why waste it talking about the past when he can talk about the present? Sami Zayn. Best way of saying it is, he is so over the top with this conspiracy theory thing that it's actually funny. It's so silly, it's to the point of funny. I really have to be honest, I really don't know as far as the wrestling part of this, why they... I don't know why they thought this would be a good thing, because when it started out it was okay, but now it's gotten to the point where he just has where it's constantly whining about the same thing. It's like, get over it already. That's what makes it funny, because it is ridiculous. But aside from that, if you knew the person, if he was doing this in real life, you'd be like, get over it, move on. Now we know Sami Zayn, like a lot of people from his country, Canada, live here in the United States to work. But if it wasn't for that, he'd probably be back in Canada. So, in other words, I want to say I don't think he has dual citizenship. So when he fusses about things that in the government, that the president, if he was to fuss about the president in any way, I don't think it's any of his business, because he is... I don't know if he has citizenship here in the United States. So, I think this. I was gonna lead into this. What I was gonna lead that into. I was gonna use that to say this. I believe that that's why his conspiracy theorist character and every other thing he did before that, I think that's why that works so well, is because it's an extension of how he really is. Even though he could be wrong, because he really believes what he's saying, that's why, I think that's why people can, I don't know if they can relate to it, but they can believe it, because that's how he really is. Just like, if you watch with an open mind Roman Reigns, that's why you should be able to respond to it better than you used to be able to respond to him, because that's how he really believes. And we know, just looking at him, we know that if this was real life, everything he believes about himself is true. Because we look at him and the way he carries himself and just decides and everything, you know that, like for instance, Seth Rollins saying he saw himself as the alpha male, that's no BS. That is the right way to describe him. Matter of fact, I don't think there is any other aptly used word than alpha male to describe him. Because even when he was starting out in FCW, he always stood head and shoulders above the rest. He was always a leader of some kind, and he always would stand out. So when you see somebody like that, the presence he has, and just everything in between, how can you doubt him being the alpha male? I don't think I've ever seen this before, so I'm going to talk about it. In that three-way Intercontinental title match last week, middle of setting up for a T-bone suplex of sorts, when Apollo Crews was doing that, he got caught from the back and thrown across with Sami Zayn for a release Sherman suplex. I know I never saw that before. What's interesting is last week or the week before, they showed Roman Reigns talking to Apollo Crews. That was interesting in itself because we read somewhere where even when he won the U.S. title, then lost it to MVP, then won it back from MVP, then lost it to Lashley. Then even back then when that scenario happened, they were thinking about turning him heel. But this current angle, talking to Reigns and losing a couple of opportunities here and there, would be a perfect way to turn him heel, because it's almost like people that are really in need of a heel turn, their characters have to really get to the boiling point of like, oh, I've just had it with this, and just that's what leads to their heel turn. That's what happened with Reigns. That's what happened with Bayley, and that's obviously what's gonna happen with Apollo Crews. They literally threw Sami Zayn where the timekeeper is. Then he runs literally into the big ending with Big E, and that's how he lost. So if he does turn heel soon, that would be a perfect explanation for it. 'Cause Rollins did return no, he's returning tonight, that's what it is. Edge cut a promo about what he was gonna do, and it was really just to build suspense for Raw, and then Raw was when he made the decision to wait until the end of the pay-per-view. No, the night after the pay-per-view. So whatever he said right here was really meaningful. Huh. 9:16, I had no idea. Let me see if Blue Bloods is new. It's a new episode. I know I'm not supposed to be talking about this, but I think this is interesting. I think it's an interesting idea. Somebody thinks they single-handedly solved a cold case. It's gonna be interesting to see. So, take the sound on and hear what Edge had to say.
It's Friday Night SmackDown on Fox. We are waiting the arrival of Edge. We will remind you to keep the party rolling tomorrow morning on the free version of the WWE Network. It's Talking Smack. Join hosts Paul Heyman and Caleb Braxton with very special guest Intercontinental Champion, still Big E, the EST of WWE, Bianca Belair, and WWE official Adam Pearce. Get it all tomorrow morning on the free version of WWE Network. But next week on Friday Night SmackDown, the return of the Messiah. Is here. What a week it has been for this man. Returning after nearly 7 months away with an injury, entering the Royal Rumble match at number 1 and outlasting 29 other superstars to pad his Hall of Fame resume. Edge has earned the right to challenge for a championship of his choosing at WrestleMania. Edge said he woke up Monday morning and he had to pinch himself. He said, "Is this a dream? I never thought it would be possible to once again win the Royal Rumble. Once again, main event, WrestleMania." You can accomplish something you've never dreamed of. For the last 7 months, while I was grinding through rehab, I was dreaming. Every road mile that I logged, I was dreaming. I dreamed of coming back here, coming back home. I was dreaming of winning the Royal Rumble, of main eventing WrestleMania.
The only thing I really know about this scene is that Roman Reigns interrupted him, wanted an answer, like everybody else did, and getting blindsided by Owens. That's why I want to see this scene.
I was dreaming of taking back something I never lost, something that I feel is mine. So last Sunday at the Royal Rumble, I came in at number 1, and I outlasted 29 of the best superstars in the world today. So now, I find myself on the precipice of the main event of WrestleMania. But that begs the question, what champion do I choose? And it's an embarrassment of riches. Do I choose Drew McIntyre? Do I choose Finn Balor? Or do I choose Roman Reigns? You know, I ask my family, I get one answer. I ask my friends, I get another answer. Hell, on my way here tonight, I saw a dude on the corner, I pulled over, I said, who do I choose? He gave me a different answer. His name was John, really nice guy. But at the end of the day, time's up. This moment, the radar superstar is standing in the dead center of the island of relevancy.
Now, despite Kevin Owens interrupting him and blindsiding him, more like blindsiding him than interrupting him, this was still an interesting scene, I guess we call it, angle or segment, whatever you want to call it.
Bring back up? You already sweating anything? Because I'm not here alone. Edge, random man. I give you my word. Without my blessing, Paul will not make a move on you. I'm renting space in your head already. I see it, man. That's why he's out here. Bruce, I'll meet you at the bus. I got this. Unless you run pass. You disrespected me. Therefore, you disrespected my family. So I'm only going to say this once. Acknowledge me. Acknowledge me as the main event of WrestleMania. Acknowledge me as the champion of choice.
Well, back they had Owens come out. That was a good save, but the truth of the matter was all he had to do is tell him, I don't have to acknowledge you because I have two other options. That's the truth of it. So, actually, I just got a notification from YouTube because they have a few different libraries that just about wrestling, and it's Razzle-Rail, excuse me. Sorry, my brother watches. Shane, if you're watching this, Shane, if you watch this, I'm sorry, but that's how they spell it. But on Razzle-Rail, somebody just uploaded an episode of Russell. I'm trying to remember what it's called. Wrestling Challenge, September 7th, 1986. Some of them are really good. All of these videos in those days were good, but what I mean is some of those videos are really, really good if you are looking for If you're looking to watch videos from the 1980s, they're really good. Some of them are very close to showing like the real build up for us for the first WrestleManias and things like that. So that's really a good channel to look at if you love professional wrestling. By the way, I started a podcast about just fighting, and I think I should add fighting to my podcast, even though that Behind the Story is more like TV shows, more like wrestling, and guess it's going to be either wrestlers or people that have acted, or at least that's what I hope for. But I can see how adding TV, not TV, adding adding the adding professional fight interviewing professional fighters if I can in the future is a good way to add to my podcast, because there's always three options, and adding sports to that is a great option. Heck, even using professional fighting in the middle, even talking about professional fighting in the middle of before we even get to the guest is a great way of adding to it. But thank you. There you have it. And what was great about Kevin Owens coming out at the end was it was a great way of adding to his story with Roman Reigns. Because a lot of people would say that their match should have ended the way it did. Now, I'm one of the people that I can remember specifically when the referee should have continued, he stopped because he was thrown into what Roman Reigns was handcuffed to, so he couldn't continue the count. So that's why it's even more interesting to see this continue, because I really don't remember him ever being in a better way to get counted out than being handcuffed to that thing. So that's what makes it even more interesting to see. Thank you and goodbye.